Welcome to Never Again Is Now, a podcast about anti Semitism. I am Evelyn Marcus.
And I am Phyllis Zembler Miller.
We have all seen those pink and black billboards on Times Square and elsewhere that say it straight to your face. Anti Semitism is still here, and you must do something to stop it. We discussed this with Archie Gottesman, the co founder of JewBelong, the organization behind the billboards. JewBelong not only launches awareness campaigns against anti Semitism, it also focuses on rebranding Judaism to make it more warm and welcoming. Archie, it's great to have you on our show. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
So, can you please tell us how you got into making billboards about Judaism and anti Semitism?
Sure. I had been, before being JewBelong, I had been in the real estate business, and we had a company in Manhattan called Manhattan Mini Storage. And it was a family business, and I was in charge of the marketing branding department. And I was very lucky. I didn't realize how lucky at the time that I had billboards all over Manhattan, and could really, as long as we sold a lot of storage rooms, I had a lot of freedom as to what to put on the billboards. And I learned that New Yorkers, because we were only in Manhattan, it was a lot of fun to talk to New Yorkers because it's very expensive and the apartments are small, and there's just a certain language that you can say just to New Yorkers, and they
It's
got
rough,
it and they
rough,
thought,
rough language, right?
yeah, and just
Yeah.
like, and we didn't even always have to talk about storage. We just, as long, because people began to know the brand. So, like we would say something like, "Oh yeah, you'll fit right in Connecticut." Now, that may not mean anything to other people, but New Yorkers are like, "Of course, I would never move to Connecticut. I don't want to go to Connecticut. I want to be in New York, and I'll complain about, the apartments being too small, and then, the rent is too high and all of that. But oh no, I'm not going to Connecticut." So anyway, I also learned the very sort of rigorous lesson that a really, really good billboard has to be, if there's 14 words, that's a lot. 11 or less is better. And because people need to see it, it's very practical, but I see a lot of bad billboards out there. People need to be able to see it while they're driving by. And so that's that's a lesson. And how do you say what you want to say very succinctly? And what is the tool of a billboard, and how can that be used? And sometimes I've heard it say, like, okay, it was tweeting before there was Twitter, or X now. But so that's how I started billboards. That's how I realized the power of billboards. Or sometimes people call it outdoor advertising, which is really billboards and everything else you see outside, like advertising on buses and things like that. And then I was no longer working for for the family business about, let's say, about 11 years ago, and then started JewBelong. And I was very, very interested in, as you said in your introduction, about people who are Jewish, but they're like, yeah, I'm not really Jewish, or I'm a bad Jew, and I could never really understand why Judaism honestly didn't market itself better, because I love being Jewish, and I'm not an observant Jew, but it is like, when the world is swirling, it's like my touchstone, and it's my anchor, and it's how I appear in the world. And I know so many people who look at Judaism as like, more like, oh, yeah, I'm Jewish, like it's a bother, or it's like something that's, that they don't love it. It's just like, but it really is a gift to be Jewish. And I think a lot of that is the way that it's translated. And if someone doesn't have a Jewish education, I understand why they feel that Judaism can be intimidating, or be, standoffish. And I understand that feeling. And I think that was one of the reasons of starting JewBelong, to say, like, there is no such thing as a bad Jew. There might be a non-observant Jew, but that's not a bad Jew. That's just someone who maybe is not observing. It's a different, and it's almost like we really have to have a good language around it. And so I put up billboards when I started JewBelong because I know they work. And I wanted to get these disconnected Jews who were like, yeah, 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 I'm Jewish, but not really. I was like, what is that? It doesn't even, what does that mean? So we had billboards that said things like, so you eat bacon, God has other things to worry about. And there were a lot of Jewish people who, eat bacon. And, that doesn't, but they don't do anything else Jewish, maybe. They don't go to synagogue or they don't like, and that is a loss for the Jewish community. That is a loss when people have disengaged. And it is important, I feel JewBelong really feels, to be open to no matter where people are on their Jewish journey. And and we like to do funny ones. And one of them said, even if you feel like Kugel is an exercise for your vagina, and people, oh my God, you use the word vagina. And, but certain people, not everybody likes the billboards. No one likes everything in this world anymore. But what happened was they got noticed. And people who said, I haven't done anything Jewish since the last 12 years, or I really dropped out sort of after my bar mitzvah, or what have you, sort of said, oh, this is actually, you might be talking my language. This is kind of funny. And they would go on our website, and we have about 600,000 uh, annual users, so individual users who use our booklets. And we have a booklet for Hanukkah and Rosh Hashanah and a Haggadah for Passover and Shabbat. And so those are the sort of the big holidays. If someone wants to do some Simchas Torah or, a different holiday or even Purim, that's not JewBelong. Like JewBelong is getting people at the top of the funnel. If someone's doing what I call sort of the more minor holidays, that's JewBelong. There's many, many, many websites for them. We're taking sort of the top of the funnel people, and sometimes they get in and they want to learn more. And there's again many, many, many deeper Jewish sites for them. So
Yeah,
that's how.
sure. So what you did was apply your professional skill of making billboards for advertising. You used that skill and try to reach Jews who are not, very far away from Judaism and identifying with being Jewish,
Yep.
and attract their attention, and then bring them to your website where they can find,
They can
some
find
more stuff about Jewish holidays, Shabbat. I saw recipes also coming by,
And you know what? And also to send them to other Jewish organizations.
yeah.
There's a whole section on the website that says, okay, you're here. Great. Do you want a trip to Israel? Do you want a Hillel? Do you want a Chabad? Do you want a Shabbat dinner? There are so many. So if JewBelong is a conduit for people to sort of say, oh, look at the riches that our community is offering people. We want to be able to send people to those because JewBelong is not a place that has we don't have events. We're online. So, but if people want to go to events, then we can maybe be a director for that because we have a lot
So
of
let
people.
me ask a question. How do you
Sure.
vet your text? In other words,
How do we, sorry,
how do you vet? In other words, which text do you choose? Do you do A/B testing? Tell me how that works.
for the billboards?
Yes,
Okay. So what we
especially
do
about
is
especially about anti-Semitism.
okay. And then just to finish, to go full circle, what happened is after the funny, we were doing all this funny billboard, the billboards I was just telling you about. And then in 2021, anti-Semitism began to, it's always been around, but as probably people listening to this podcast, that is when it started to go
Yeah,
crazy. Before October 7th, and that
another
is
Gaza
when
war was going on. Yeah,
yep, you got it. And it was practically overnight because we are online a lot. Instagram is our main space. And all of a sudden, the word Zionism was like a bad word. I was like, what? This is crazy. It was like boom. And all of a sudden, so we said at JewBelong, we said this, we can't, this seems a little naive to keep talking about a great Passover when people feel like there's a target on their back.
Mhm.
So that is when we started to use our tool of billboards to fight
I
anti-Semitism.
see.
So, and that's the pink and white billboards that many
Mhm.
people see that you mentioned in the introduction. The way that we decide which lines, we test them. We test them on social media, or we use a company that does data testing. Social media is the less expensive way. We're a 501(c)(3), so we're always careful with how we spend our money. And and it really is about engagement. It's about which of the lines people engage with. And I'm very interested in non-Jewish audiences. I I know that Jewish people see the billboards and many people like them and they feel, oh, this made me feel so good and I felt seen. But the main audience for a billboard, because 98% of the country is not Jewish, is the non-Jewish, is a Christian audience or, other audiences. And that is especially important. So when um, we do a lot of advertising on, or we pay for Instagram posts. So we will show up in people's feeds who are not Jewish, and we do that on purpose. There's ways that we can follow an algorithm and get into, people are looking up Easter, we might show up in their feed, and then we're looking for that kind of engagement, specifically the non-Jewish audience, which is to me and to a lot of people, that's the nut that we need to crack in terms of allyship.
Can you give us some examples of your anti-Semitism billboards?
There's something that says standing against anti-Semitism is standing with America. There's another one that says, let's be clear, Hamas is your problem too. There's another one that says you don't have to be a Jew to protect Jews. There's another one of our originals said, it's been 78 years since the gas chamber. So a billboard calling out anti-Semitism is not an overreaction. So it's billboards like that. Most of what I just told you, especially you don't need to be a Jew to protect Jews, is talking to a non-Jewish audience. Same with standing against anti-Semitism and standing with America. What our testing has shown us is that Americans care about themselves. They don't particularly care about Jews, which it sounds kind of bad when I say it, but there's nothing bad about that. I say, okay, fine. Like anti-Semitism is not number one on their hit parade of what they're worrying about. But if they see, Islamist extremism coming to affect their way of life, that wakes people up. That is really the way that this sort of hatred that is taking over, Jews is going to, that motivates the non-Jewish audience when, it's sort of like the West is next. And that's perfectly true as far as I can tell, everything I
Mhm.
see.
I agree.
And that is where people need to, it's not about, oh, I love the Jews so much. It's about, oh my gosh, this is threatening my way of life.
Yeah. So, um, I have a friend who
Mhm.
he has a very busy work. I'd say his job is he has a very busy job, and he told me that he wants to become more active against anti-Semitism. He feels the problem, but he sort of felt that for a long time, and then he passed your billboard, and that was triggering his next step, his first step to action, actually, to do something against anti-Semitism. Um, I know he joined your organization as a supporter, and he also joined mine as a supporter, and so it really woke him up. And
That's good.
yeah, so we asked Chat GPT, and it turns out roadside billboards exist since the 19th century. Why does JewBelong use this almost retro way of reaching people, whereas most organizations use the internet? And
Yeah,
what
it's
do
such
you
a
know
great
about
question.
and what do you know about the effectiveness of your billboards?
Okay, so Everyone, and I have a telephone and I am on social media and I get how social media works. I really do understand the power of it. It is also really important to understand the weaknesses of social media. And the weaknesses are that the algorithm is very, very powerful. And all you need to do to prove this is pick up somebody else's phone and go through their feed, and you will see chances are things you never see. I have, my daughter, she likes to bake, and I pick up her phone and all I see are baking. You pick up my phone, all you see are Jewish issues, and I love to help homeless dogs. So you see a lot of dogs who need homes. That's it. That is what my algorithm is feeding me because it knows that this is my interest. Okay, that is how it works. So when the Jewish community is putting not hundreds of thousands, but millions of dollars behind social media, a lot of it is going to speaking within the echo chamber. And that is a really big blind spot that is happening over and over. And because I see all of it, because it's again, my phone is what I follow. It's great content, but if it's all of us, if it's the Jews and allies who are seeing it, it's not changing things. It's not shifting the narrative. And that is one of the really big issues of social media. Wouldn't say to stop it. I mean, JewBelong is part of it, but it has to be done in a different way. And we have to stop telling ourselves, I hear this way too often in the Jewish community, that oh, this went viral. Meaning some clip or something on social. It didn't go viral. It went viral within a very, very small universe of the Jewish space. And it's really important to sort of be straight. Like we can't tell ourselves stories about oh, our big success because we're missing the boat. I mean, this makes me crazy, but there was 30 movies that were all made about October 7th. And it's very expensive to make movies or documentaries, same thing. And you know, who are we making these for? It's not a Christian audience who's seeing them, it's the Jewish audience. So anyway, it's billboards and answer, they are the ultimate they're the ultimate communicator to everyone who sees them. Obviously, you buy a billboard by geography. So if I want to buy a billboard in Kansas City happens to have 1% of the community is Jewish. Okay, that means 99% of the people who are going to see the billboard are not Jewish. That is a foolproof way of advertising outside of the echo chamber. It's less, by the way, in Tennessee or Mississippi or, Oklahoma. These are places where our message is very important and we are not reaching these people. And that group of people are many are not meaning group of people. Like that part of the country, they they haven't chosen a side. They're not particularly interested in the pro-Hamas universe, but they're also not particularly interested in the Jews. But that's okay I want them to consider anti-Semitism before they are sort of taken by those who would like to do the Jewish community harm.
So you're
And
yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
no, that's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. So you're saying the internet can reach a lot of people, but the algorithm makes you reach the choir, right? It's the echo chamber that you
Always,
reach.
unless you pay for advertising. And
Yeah,
if you pay for advertising, you can buy advertising just like anybody else. You can say, I only want to buy advertising for people who, looked up church membership or looked up Easter or some who you not sure, but the chances are those are probably not Jewish, but it's very expensive.
hmm,
And I that is not the way a lot of Jewish organizations are doing what they're saying outreach. It's just
yeah.
not. So That
And the
is how it
billboard,
works.
and with a billboard, you're sure that you reach non-Jewish people because everybody is driving through that street where that billboard
Everyone's
stands,
driving through.
right?
It is,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, another way could potentially be television because not everybody watching TV is Jewish. And but that's that's a very expensive, that's a lot more than a billboard. A billboard. And you asked before about like how do we know it works? We did a study. We had never been in mentioning Kansas City again, because that's where our study was. We had never been in Kansas City, no billboards. And we said, okay, so we hired an advertising research agency, and they interviewed 2,000 people who were not Jewish. They wiped out the Jewish people. They also wiped out people who care a lot about the issue. You got to do a questionnaire. It's, same thing, people call you up, can you do a survey? So they did a survey. And they wiped out people who cared about the issue, and they wiped out you if you were Jewish. They didn't do the survey. And who was left is what we call the mushy middle, the ones who don't really care about the issue, and put the billboards there. And then after it was 1 month, then 3 months, then another month, then they did the second survey. And people who said combating anti-Semitism is an urgent issue went up by 28% of, again, this mushy middle, the people who didn't care. And that's pretty good data. And the other thing that went up very well is I actively speak up about anti-Semitism went up 26%. So if anyone is interested in this topic and they want to reach out to JewBelong, we have a report, a small report that we can send to people about the results. But that's how we know. Those are data.
So you said with that billboard, 26%
I
up.
actively speak up about
Wow.
anti-Semitism when,
That's
yeah.
yeah.
So, you know, you also have to understand billboards, they're very good and they also have a limit. They're not going to teach you about 1948, or they're not going to say, oh, Israel got out of Gaza in 2005, but people don't care. Like there is a world of Americans who are not going to become Middle East experts no matter how much we wish that they would. It's just they don't care. And that is reality. And I really feel like dealing with reality it's not even important. It's crucial. I mean, we don't have the luxury of making silly mistakes, the Jewish community. So it's really, so let's tell them what we can tell. Let's tell them what they care about instead of what we want them to care about. That makes
Uh,
sense? You know what
It
I
does.
Yeah.
mean?
Evelyn, I
Okay.
have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
You Belong aims at strengthening Jewish identity and ending anti-Semitism. But why is it important to have a stronger Jewish identity, especially in America?
So if I said to somebody, we're going to fight anti-Semitism, and that's it, and we are just day in and day out, and this is what and they're like, that's, by the way, there's people who sort of woke up on October 8th and said, oh my God, I care about this issue. But at some point, you have to know what you're fighting for. It fills the soul. It's like, I am fighting because it's my people, because I know some history, because I care about being Jewish, because I want my children and my grandchildren to be Jewish and care about it. And so I feel like it's almost two sides of the same coin. If one side is like, there you're a warrior and you're going to be a warrior and warrior and warrior, the other side is like, whoa, 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 what are we fighting for again? Oh, we are fighting because this matters. It matters. And that's why JewBelong does both the Joyous Judaism, the booklets I was telling you about, and the billboards. Because unfortunately, we're in a time where we can't just just do Joyous Judaism. That's not what the world's handing. I hate it. I mean,
I would
it
agree
is
with you.
not, yeah.
I would more than agree with you. In 1992, my co-author and I, Rabbi Karen Fox, published a book that's still on Amazon called Seasons for Celebration. And you can
Mm,
get all the chapters for free because we think it's so important that people actually know what they are talking about.
exactly. Because otherwise you get to be a very flimsy warrior. You
Yes,
know what I mean? I mean,
yes,
and it's not about halachic. It's not that. It's more like what's in their heart and what they care about. And I think everyone wants meaning at some point or another, I think, in their lives. And if someone is Jewish, then let's at least make sure that that's where they look first if they haven't grown up with it. And to be very understanding of that. But yeah, it's good that you did put it all on for free. It's funny, all JewBelong's booklets are free. And it's just it's there for the taking. There's a lot of amazing, content for people that's just available, but they have to take the step and download it and read it and all that.
Um, Outside of JewBelong, we're interested in your thoughts about the following. We see hatred towards Israel growing in America, both at the far left and at the far right, especially with young people.
Mhm.
What is your vision for turning this around?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so right, I think part of the vision is to know when to fight, to know when to go into that space, to know when to educate. Right now, and this is not something that, Archie thinks, this is the data. There's been research that said that Israel's sort of PR is at such a negative right now that right now is not the time to unless there's someone who's so powerful, and it's not JewBelong, that's for sure, that are just going to try to sort of change the PR of Israel. It's not now. I mean, no matter what people think of the war and of Gaza and all of that, there's been a perception, and the perception has been negative about Israel. I think it's incredibly unfair. I think it's awful. I mean, you think of the bad word and I'll agree with you, but right now it is I think there just needs to be the time, at least in America, we sort of take a beat. And this is not about the fight of fighting is the for, sort of, well, Israel's really, it was fighting back and it was because of October 7th. Everybody knows that, but the other side has done an excellent job of making Israel into the aggressor. And that is very it is going to take some, in my opinion, it is going to take a little bit of time to sort of have that come out of the news cycle and go back to, Americans are everybody, but Americans who's I'm most interested, like we do change our attention. I mean, attention's not going to be on this all the time.
No.
So it's gonna change. But this is one of the reasons why on almost all of JewBelong's billboards, we don't talk about Israel. Because it's too heavy of a lift for a billboard to sort of change someone's mind about Israel. It's very, very difficult. I wish I had sort of better news about like, yeah, next year it's going to be, easier. And I think Israel, it's just not right now. It will be okay, but it isn't going to be, it's not today or tomorrow.
So
And
I,
yeah, go ahead.
Evelyn, I need to ask a
Yeah.
question. I um, divide my attention between what is said about Israel and what
Hmm.
is pure anti-Semitism in America that has nothing to do with Israel. So, for
Hmm.
example, here in California, the ethnic studies curriculum fiasco has been going on forever, in which schools, I don't think you may not know this, but that schools can hire outside consultants to write curriculum. And it is absolutely disgusting, in which it talks about all the anti-Semitic stereotypes that have nothing to do with Israel, nothing to do with Israel. And how do we deal with that?
In schools, we need to, oh, okay. We need to fight back the same way they are fighting back. Now, I'm answering this as Archie Gottesman, not, not JewBelong, because we're not in schools. But what I see that, there are some, there's smart people doing good things everywhere. And it is, what do? You do what they did. You get into the curriculum, you run for the school board, you make sure that the book that's being read by the sixth graders isn't, anti-Israel, and you fight. And we were so slow, the Jewish community in America, to react to what has happened. We really, I mean, sometimes I just get so angry at our community because, you had to be really asleep to not pay attention to what was happening on college campuses. It was happening 10 years ago. It was happening, you know, more than 10. I mean, there were professors who were anti-Israel. There were, they weren't the people who really hate Israel, they weren't quiet about it. They were BDSing years and years ago. I think the Jewish community was, I think we were naive. I think we thought, okay, well, it's not so bad. Or I don't know why. There was not organized. We didn't sort of come and say, this is unacceptable. We're going to fight it. It's also, there's very few of us. So it's a little, it's hard. So even if someone was fighting in one school district, where I know there were people who were, it was hard to sort of like, it was like a wave coming in, and they're like, oh, well, we don't want to read that book. But that's why the Jewish community is so interested in speaking. I mean, sorry, JewBelong is so interested in speaking out of the echo chamber because Jews are not going to solve this. We know they're Christian, you know, um, we need everybody. We need every other faith to care about this issue. So those who would seek to do us harm are so skilled. They're very patient. They've gotten into so many different like verticals, like they're on museum boards. Okay, so now they're going to not let in Israeli artists. They're on bookstores. So okay, now we're not going to like take out those books by, Zionist authors. They're obviously in schools. You talked about schools. They're even in businesses. I mean, and making it harder so they have sort of,
Teachers unions, influences.
yes,
Yeah, a lot of
exactly. They've sort
schools.
of entered every space with their agenda. And the Jewish community, we're so shy. We're like, oh, well, I'm on the school board, but I'm not going to really talk about Israel because the school board. Like, yeah, you damn right, better start talking about Israel or being Jewish or how scary it is to be Jewish because that's what the other side is doing. They put their agenda. My favorite example, I'm sure you guys remember, is the Women's March back in 2016. Linda Sarsour, she hops up on the stage. This is supposed to be a march for women to talk about this was in reaction. I believe this was when Donald Trump won the election, and it was about women. What does she do? She gets up on the podium and she starts talking about Palestine. The nerve of that. Like it was so not the agenda. But we should have woken up back in 2016, said, these people they are going to stick their agenda wherever they want, and we better start paying attention. And we didn't. I mean, really, to be perfectly fair, we did not wake up. That it would have been better to wake up in 2016.
Right.
But,
So there is uh, at the pro-Palestinian side, at the Palestinian side itself, there is this sense of propaganda. War is part of the war for the Palestinians against Zionism, and we wage it everywhere um, in the West. And so there is also the discipline to fight that propaganda war at the other side. We never Israel doesn't fight the propaganda war. They fight the military war. And the Jewish communities around the world, yes, they woke up very late. Also because I think we thought the danger would come from the right, as we're used to. It comes from the fascists, it comes from the white supremacists, from the racists. But now suddenly it took us a while to understand that this time it was big time coming in 2016, at least from the far left, who had by that time already the teachers unions and other influential institutions and the college campuses started to be influenced. And now we're late. We're late with waking up. So if you would
so
be
late.
if you would be if you would be the president, if you would be the head of the presidents of all the Jewish organizations,
Mm.
that committee where all these presidents and CEOs of the Jewish organizations sit together, if you would be at the head of that, what would
Mhm.
you do differently with our Jewish.
Oh, I would do so many things differently. Uh, I would I would actually do, this is you copy what they've done. When those pro-Palestine, pro-Hamas, they speak in one voice.
Yeah,
The Jewish community, we speak in 150 voices. Why? Because there's 150
yeah,
different organizations. I would say, I don't care what you say, you know, what you name the Jewish organization, I say we are speaking in one voice. And no one is going to be completely happy, but we will get a message and we are going to be clear and we are going to keep doing it and we are going to stop talking to each other. We are going to talk to outsiders. We're going to figure this out and we are going to do what they did. We are going to get our voices into the spaces that have been poisoned by we're going to talk about our issue in in school boards on all of the spaces. And but it would take, unfortunately, what I've learned about having a nonprofit organization in the Jewish space is there's not a lot of collaboration, not nearly as much as I would have thought when we started. And because, there's lots of reasons for that. There's donors and, I don't want you taking my donor, you don't want me taking your donor, whatever. So it is so messy and so complicated, and everyone has their project and their issue. And I understand this because I'm a business person. I understand business and they're business. Nonprofits are really businesses. But your question was, what would I do if I could have the real power? We would really do that differently. You know what's so amazing? When you guys remember this, when, when you think about it, like if I had said to you 5 years ago, well, you know what, there's going to be kids sleeping on lawns in colleges all across the country at UCLA and at Columbia and, Boston University and they're all going to be having the same kind of placards. They're all going to have the same signs and they're all going to be saying the same things. And they're even all going to have the same tents. And by the way, even when it's cold and raining, they're going to sleep outside because they're going to fight for, Hamas. I would have said I was crazy. I was like, that's impossible. They're all going to say the same thing, like no matter what school and this and that. They did. They did that exact thing, and they did it because they are organized, and they're even doing the same chants everywhere. Why? Because they said, I don't know who's run, I mean, I know who's running. I mean, it's Iranian. Like you know who's sort of the head of this thing, but they have an army who's just like going to one drummer. And I think the Jewish community is still so divided. And that's a huge issue as to why, how do we fight this? And so
yeah.
that's what I would do. We would
So
stop
what
being
you're
so
saying is
divided.
the other side is in the propaganda war is marching as an army. We should do the same and have one voice and
One
think of a good
voice.
message and all
So,
say,
Yeah,
with
but
that, I'm going to
everywhere.
wrap up this
Okay.
fascinating interview.
Okay.
And
On that happy note, sorry, I wish I could be
no,
more
no,
and
joyful,
no.
Archie, I really, really, I mean, I happen to agree with you. So it's on a lot, I mean, and everything, but that's beside the point. I thank you for coming on the show. I thank our listeners for listening. If any of you want to know more about what Evelyn and myself do in terms of other areas, please go to neveragainisnowpodcast.com and please, please, please speak up against all anti Semitism and hate. Thank you.
thank you.